I'll make a floor announcement just in case anybody wants to have time.
Hi, everybody. I have some idea.
Is this still going?
That's me. Well, good afternoon, everybody. How is everybody today? Good. So I guess, I'm Greg Baldwin. I'm the voice of Uncle Iro, and I'll just, open it to any questions that you have. I will answer them. We'll just do it that way. What do you think? Work for you? And then afterwards, usually I only cosplay one day, but I'm going to cosplay again today because usually it's a pain because I have to find a place where I can change because the hotel is right here. So I will be cosplaying Iro at my booth after this panel. So come by and say hello. So I'll open it up to questions. Anybody got a question? No math questions, please.
I loved you as Aku in Samurai Jack. So how excited were you when they brought that show back a few years later?
I was very excited. And then they didn't call me for a while. And I knew that I would be in the running. They never called me. So Princess said, so they called you? Are you going to be Akusa? I don't know, man. They probably recast. So finally, I got a call from Gendy Tarkovsky, these people, and they said, it was unusual. They don't usually do the things this way. They said that Gendy wants you to come into the very first recording session and actually do the gig. And so my audition was the very first episode. He said, if Gendy wants to see if he can work with you. So I'm going, I hope I get stuck. Because it would be really bad to go in there, because Phil Lamar's there, everybody's there. And the sweetest words I ever heard was after the recording session. Gendy says, okay, I'll see you again in a couple of weeks. And it's like, okay, I think I got the gig. So now the audition process for Avatar was very different. It was literally the day that I was laid off from my job in business and legal affairs at Disney. I'd been laid off like an hour before. And then they called me and said, my agent said, you're Nickelodeon's first pick for Iro, and they want to see you in person. And it's like, that's what they said, when one door closes, another door opens. This was a day when that definitely happened. So I went in, and the first audition, I think it was just for the casting director. The second audition, technically it would have been the third, because the very first audition was where I simply recorded the lines and sent them back to my agent. The third audition was for Mike and Brian and casting Andrea Romano and all those people. And the very, very last audition was, they were all there, but also a room full of Nickelodeon executives. And so usually there's glass in the recording session. I'm on this side of the engineers, and all those executives are on the other side. And Andrea Romano says, okay, after I did the audition, we're gonna cut off the sound in here so we can all talk about it. And I'm literally watching all these people talking rather animatedly about it, going, holy moly, this gig could change my life. I wonder what they're saying. And I was like, oh, they hate me. So that was scary. And then, of course, because such things work, that they didn't call me for another 3 weeks after that. And with every day that passed, you're going, okay, well, I didn't get the gig. They're never going to call me. And finally, they did call me. He said I had the role, and so I did what anybody would do. The next day, I took my family to Disneyland. And I'm still paying for that now. I'll be in bed roughly until 2030. But it was a really fun day. All right, any other questions? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So do you actually like to drink tea, or what's your favorite drinking choice?
All right, I hate people asking that. And to be honest with you, if I am at a Japanese or Chinese restaurant, place where I order tea, I will order sake. I was raised in Texas. All of my family's from Texas. My favorite tea is sweet tea. And my second favorite tea is Long Island tea. But that's another kind of tea altogether. I was at a show recently in Texas, and I said that in the panel, and they literally brought me a bucket of ice cold sweet tea, and it was hot. I actually really enjoyed it. I said, can I have a straw? Because this was a bucket, I took a picture like this. So yeah, I always thought it was fun. Fun fact: did you know that after water, tea is the most popular beverage in the world? And I thought it would be interesting. If only I knew someone who could green like reality shows. I thought it would be good. Since I really don't know anything about tea, and IRO is so, tea and IRO just sort of go together. It would be an interesting reality show where I just go to different places and drink, and different countries have different kinds of tea. I thought it would be a cool reality show where I just go and sample tea and drink it and learn about it, and mainly so I can travel all over the world for free. To be honest with you, that's actually why I think it would be a good idea. But I'm being honest. Cone of silence. So, and who else? Anybody? What we got?
It's not really a question, it's more of a thank you. You made my childhood a lot better, and I'm raising my daughter on Avatar: The Last Airbender and Samurai Jack. So I just want to say thank you again.
Thank you all. It has been one of the greatest joys of my life to voice this character. And I always knew Ira was a very well written character. That was clear from the very start. But once the gig was over, and it's acting, okay, well, that was a great job. Now my job is to go find another job because this job is done. We knew it was a good product, but we didn't know that 17 years later, he would still be talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I didn't realize until I started going to these cons and talking to fans, the impact that this character has had on people. I mean, literally, I think I got a DM on Twitter several years ago. The DM was, I'm sorry to bother you, Mr. Baldwin, but my dad just died, and I was wondering if you could offer me any wisdom. And that's when I realized, holy moly, this is, first of all, a little, above my pay grade. But secondly, it's like this character has really impacted people's lives. I was joking to my wife one morning, she's like, Greg, clean out the kitty litter, it's disgusting. And I said to her, excuse me, Melissa, I am the beloved father figure for an entire generation. To which she said, I really don't give a damn, damn kitty litter. To which I said, yes, of course, my dear, I am most happy to accommodate you. And that's how I've been married for 40 years. Some more years.
What is your favorite business saying?
Of Iro's, without a doubt, and it was shortly after the pandemic had begun. And coincidentally, my wife and I had sold our house. We lived in Burbank for 30 years where we had raised our children. Kids were grown, so we sold our house. We were going to move back to New Mexico where I was born with the thought that I could fly in and out of LA for gigs. And everything worked according to plan except for timing. And we arrived in New Mexico on March 1st, 2020. So 2 weeks later, the sky fell. And I remember I was out walking one morning in New Mexico where I didn't know anybody. We left our family, our friends for this thing. And I remember, oh my God, what am I going to do? There's no toilet paper. What have we done? We let our children down. Oh my God, the world is going to end. This is terrible. And I heard a bird sing. And very clearly in my head, I heard Iro's bird sing, if you look for the light, you will often find it. If you look for the dark, that is all you will ever see. And after that quote sort of got me through the pandemic. Just in spite of all the darkness, and even now, because there's still a lot of darkness in the world, but there's also more light in the world. And it's a good reminder of that, On a non-Iro piece of wisdom that I found in some ways, I think is the secret of life. For me at least, and it's not from Avatar, it is oddly enough from the Disney remake, the live action remake of Cinderella. And it's so simple, have courage and be kind. And really, when you think about what to do in life, if you can do those two things, that's the secret to what happens in life. Have courage because bad things are going to happen to you no matter what, they happen to everybody. Kindness. And when you really think about it, I think if you had to distill Iro's wisdom into 3 bullet points, that would be the first one. Be kind. Be kind. The second one, I think, would be take time to savor the simple things in life, such as a cup of tea, or a jacuzzi bath. And the most important one, which is the lesson he teaches Zuko, is that no matter who you are, no matter what you've done, everyone is capable of becoming a better version of themselves. So I think if I had to literally distill the wisdom of Iro into 3 points, that's it. People expect me sometimes to I wrote is so wise. They expect me to be wise. And it's like, no, I don't have high road level wisdom. I do have, I think, if any I have the wisdom of any 61-year-old man who's been reasonably self-aware. You know, that. And another, if you really want another really practical point of wisdom, do not mix liquors. Ever. This is a lesson that I continually struggle with myself. You know? What can I say? All right, next question. Anybody? Mario, my friend.
When you were doing the therapy session for Aku in that one particular episode, was it one set of lines I had to go this way and then another set, or were you literally just?
I think I was just reading it straight through. And I think that particular scene, of all of my scenes, I hate myself in that scene. And I think it's because in the very first episode of the 5th season, I think Aku only speaks once. This was the first time that you really hear me as Aku speak for a long time. And I was terrified. I think and that's always been the issue with being a voice match for Mako. Because it's one thing just to go in and voice these iconic characters, but then I also have to remember the iconic actor that voiced the iconic characters. So it's kind of like a double whammy. So with Avatar and also with Samurai Jack, the first couple of times is terrifying. And I think the more I do it, the more the season progresses. I think by the last episode of Samurai Jack, I'm starting to get a good handle on it. But actually, Iroh is an easier voice. Because Iroh is very zen. Everything is on one level. And Aku is not. I always say that the difference is like an acting. Iroh is acting for film. It's very, very subdued. It's all down here. Whereas Aku is acting for the stage, where he wants to talk to the people in the balcony, you know. Iroh is like this, and Aku is like this. So it's actually a little more difficult, I think, that role was. I think I'm pretty critical of my work anyway. I just now am to the point where I might actually watch Avatar: The Last Airbender all the way through. Because I listen to a different ear. I listen to Mako's episodes and I go, oh my God, he's so good, I can never achieve that. And then when it gets to me, I'm like, oh, it's not anything like Mako. But I think it's been long enough now that I probably could simply watch the show or just enjoy the show as the show, as what I think legitimately you could say is not only one of the greatest animated television shows of all time, but I think also simply one of the greatest television shows of all time. I literally think you could put Avatar against Breaking Bad any day and it would absolutely hold its own. Anyone else? Yes.
What was your feelings having to take over Iroh after Mako passed away?
Well, it was scary. It was my road to that is an interesting road. It's like a Cyrus says, destiny is a funny thing. You never know how things are going to work out. The way I ended up getting the role is very odd. When I was 10 years old, my parents took me to see a film called Scrooge. It's a musical called, it stars Albert Finney. It comes on every Christmas. If you've never seen it, I think it's one of the best adaptations of A Christmas Carol. Anyway, I love this movie. From the moment I saw this movie, I wanted to be an actor, and I fell in love with musicals. To the point that I would say, from birthdays to Christmas, all I wanted from my parents was record albums from Broadway shows. My 17th birthday, 1977, they give me a record from a show called Pacific Overtures by Stephen Sondheim, and it stars an actor named Mako Arumatsu, who was nominated for Tony for this. And the first time I heard him speak, and literally his voice is the first thing you hear on the record album, him going, Nippon, the floating kingdom. And I love this music so much. I could sing the entire musical for you right now. In fact, I will. So I'm going to be here a little while. I would sing along with it again and again and again, never realizing that in 2006, when Mako passes away, I have, unbeknownst to me, been working on a Mako impression for 30 years. And that just demonstrates, at my age, you can sort of see once you get to be a certain age, you can look back in your life and you can see how this led to that, which led to this. And I think, wow, man, it all was just that one record album. If they had given me another record album for my 17th birthday, it would very well be somebody else sitting up here right now. So you never know. I mean, seemingly the most innocuous thing, that record became one of the most important things in my life. And indeed, I had it framed and it's now on my wall, the actual record album. And my kids can fight on it, fight over it when I go. Or maybe I'll just auction it off on eBay before I go. See what I get. What else? Anybody? Yes.
What was your favorite character?
I wrote without a doubt. And it's because because of the impact he makes. And because Iroh does nothing but put good out into the universe. He really does. And I have found that by seeking just to represent that truthfully in the real world, the good has come back to me as well, 1,000-fold. So, yeah, it's definitely Iroh. Iroh is undoubtedly the best character I ever voiced. And I could go to my grave having only voiced Iroh. I say, because going back to Mako, I will never be the first Iroh, and I will never even be the best Iroh. But being the second Iroh is not a bad thing to be, It's okay. And it has been, except for my wife and my children, the greatest joy and blessing of my life to voice Uncle Iroh and to try and to represent him in the real world as best as I can. And I think, sometimes I actually, the nice thing is that I also voice Haku. And, we all aspire to be Uncle Iroh, but every now and then you need to have a Haku day. Literally, sometimes I'll be tweeting. And by the way, Twitter's a terrible place, you should never go there. I will sometimes hear Iroh over with like the little angels, and I was like, Greg, do you really want to put that out into the universe? Maybe you don't want to do that. And over here, I've got people going, oh, hit send, you coward, don't be a wuss. So I found, what I do is I type out my response, my meme response, listen to Haku. And then I listen to Iroh and I just never send it. So it seems like that works out very well. And if it would actually probably work out if everybody did it. Alas, we can't all be Iroh. But we can all listen to Iroh. I think that probably he has so many wise, important things to say. I think it would not at all surprise me if 200 years from now, there's not a religion called Irohology or something like that. It could happen. It could happen. Anyone? Yes, sir.
If you personally were in the Avatar world, what kind of bender do you think?
I think I would be an airbender. I think because I've always been sort of, my head's a little bit more in the clouds, sort of like that. And I think, I think an airbender. I think, I should say firebender, but actually, I think I would probably be more of an airbender kind of person. Yes. Yeah, I'm a little deaf.
How many times have you randomly gone into character?
Ask my kids about it. Literally, when my kids were little, they were like, Dad, please let Mom read the stories because she doesn't do all those stupid voices. Okay. And Iroh, honestly, I think this voice is almost as natural to me as my own voice now. I can do it just literally. Now, Aku's a little different. And people say, because, Mako's voice is a little gravelly. It's not gravelly. And they say it's difficult. I've actually, and I think because I've been doing it so long, and also I find the bourbon has aged my vocal cords nicely, so I can do that. But just in the general voice acting world, the worst thing for my voice, and I think other voice actors would agree with me, are video games. Because when you go and record a video game, frequently it'll be like, okay, I want 3 takes and you're only being hit slightly. And this will go all the way up to, okay, I want 3 takes of you being burned alive. And so if you're doing, all day long, you go, that can really hurt your voice. There's been some times literally at the end of the day, yeah, that's rough. Anyone else? Questions? Yes, sir.
What has your latest work been on?
I currently voice the Ghost Magistrate Bartholomew on The Ghost of Molly McGee on the Disney Channel, which is a really cool show. I haven't recorded any video games since the pandemic, but I recorded a Marvel game right before the pandemic began. And I've never heard from the game or anything, so it may have just sort of halted production due to the pandemic. I was, correct me, in Captain America, First Soldier, I was one of the, he has a big mustache, he's a Marvel character, I can't think of his name. That's it, that's the one, that's the character. But it's never come out, and so I hope I didn't just violate my NDA by telling you that, but if I did, Marvel, they're not gonna sue me, are they? A big company like Marvel, they wouldn't come after me. I actually, speaking of Marvel, for many years, my day job was I was a credits administrator, credits manager for Disney and Warner Brothers and Marvel. In other words, all those credits at the end, somebody has to spell those names, and that was me. So all of the Marvel movies in Phase 2, I think that's from Iron Man 3 through Ant-Man, the credits were done by me. I actually sort of one day I tried to get an idea of how many credits there were in a Marvel movie. Roughly 20,000 credits. And here's something. It was Avengers: Age of Ultron. The actor Stellan Skarsgård. And he has one of those little over one of the A's in his name. It has that with the little sweetie. There's a word for it. I can't think of what it's called. And I get called from Disney, the mastering department one time. And Disney doesn't know this. Don't tell them. Actually, they can't fire me anymore. But they can sue me. Stellan Skarsgård, that little mark was in the right place in the main titles, but in the cast crawl where they repeat. And I checked it to make sure it was spelled right, but I didn't check it to make sure that little mark was in the right place. So if you watch Age of Ultron, that little mark is over the wrong A in the end crawl. You can blame me again. It was Aku. Aku did it. It was Aku. What else? Anybody? No math questions, please. Yes. No, I would have to say probably the first villain I voiced, the true villain was probably Frank Fontaine in BioShock. Probably. He was, and the funny thing about that, you guys have played the game. I originally voiced Atlas as well at the recording session. And when I was voicing Atlas, they had me do Southern Atlas. And would you kindly? And I guess for whatever reason, they replaced me with an actor named Carl Hanover, who does the Irish accent. But I am Fontaine, and they manipulated the voice of Fontaine a little bit to make it a little lower and a little slower, a little creepier.
So it's very hard for me to do the voice unless I have a microphone right in front of me. That's the voice.
I think that's the voice of Fontaine. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah, and Aku is an interesting villain too, because Aku is terrifying. I mean, he's the literal physical embodiment of all evil, and he's also funny. I mean, he's like, he's going to kill you, but at least he'll die laughing. I'm thinking with Aku, and of course the famous pizza scene. When I got the role, there was a friend of mine who texted me and said, "Man, whatever you do, just understand that you're going to have to learn 2 words of what they're going to want to hear you say is Aku." And of course, he's right. Those 2 words were extra thick. Next question, please. Anyone? Yes, sir.
I never thought too much about, credits for movies. When you did that for Marvel, what all went in? Were you just making sure all the names were correct, and then how long did that process take? Did you do any of the design process?
No, but the title houses actually do all that. I literally was just in there from the legal perspective. First of all, make sure that all the names were contractual, and there are orders as well, especially in the main titles. In a Marvel movie, you bet there's definite placement guarantees. Mainly to make sure everything we're legally obligated to do, we've done, and then as much as possible to make sure that all the names are spelled correctly. And when you're dealing with that many names, I found out very quickly that if you're going to err on the side, pay a lot more attention to the producer's assistant's name than like the third unit grip, just in terms of what can come back and bite you in the butt, you know. And some of them did bite me in the butt. Not so much of Marvel. I did let a one sheet go once at Disney where it should have been Steven with a PH and I let it go with a V. They didn't like that very much. And it was a co-producer too, so that was a bad thing. It was a good job actually. They were putting me through college. I have to say this job was a lot more fun. If I had to choose careers, you know, I'll go with the one where I get to be Uncle Ira, you know, and get to travel to places. I actually, if the truth be told, I like these doing these cons and meeting these fans better than I ever actually like voice acting itself. You know? It's more fun. It's like every couple of weeks I get to run away and join the circus. You know, what a great you know, job that is. Fantastic. Yes, who hasn't asked me a question, Damon? You over there.
What was it like doing the singing voice from Ira? As if people having that control of emotional damage over millions of people being able to.
Well, yeah, most of that was Mako, but I did the one line that I said that I think you still get "Leave from the Vine," which I don't sing.
Okay.
But the one line, because that was Mako, but the one line that I said that is really a sad line and needs to get people is, "I was never angry with you. I was sad because I thought you had lost your way." That's a great scene, you know. And in terms of Mako's singing voice, that's how I learned to do Mako. From Pacific Overtures, and again, I'll sing a little bit for you right now. This is my impression of Mako from Pacific Overtures, 1977, singing a song called "The Advantages of Floating in the Middle of the Sea." In the middle of the world we float, in the middle of the sea. The realities remain remote, in the middle of the sea. Kings are burning somewhere, wheels are turning somewhere. Trains are being run, wars are being won, things are being done somewhere out there, not here. Here we plant rice. There you have it. Mako, 1977. For which he was nominated for a Tony, and he was also nominated for an Oscar for The Sandpatters, a movie from the 60s. And I don't, surprisingly, everything you read on the internet is not true. The internet has said that I was Mako's understudy. When reality is I never actually met Mako, and I would never have been his understudy. Because, you know, an understudy is something that you on stage, an actor is not able to go on, so he's going to be replaced that night. But I would have to be someone that looked like Mako. And there was no way I would ever be Mako's, you know, understudy. First of all, when Mako passed, I think he was 72 and I was 46, so we were not even remotely the same age. So I always thought that was kind of funny, but I never met him. I was introduced to him through Pacific Overtures and then started following his career very, very closely. I mean, I don't think it would be false to say that I probably am Mako's #1 fan. But the cool thing that happened, and I always tell this story, and sometimes I get a little emotional telling it, because it was the next to last record session for Samurai Jack. And I go into Cartoon Network in Burbank and I sign in with the guard at the front. You know, and there's someone ahead of me has signed in as Mako. And I thought, well, that's a sick joke. What's up with that? You know? But I walked back to the green room and there's Genki Tartakovsky. He's talking to a woman and a teenager. He says, "Hey, Greg, come over here. I want you to meet somebody. This is Mako's daughter and Mako's grandson, who's also called Mako. They're going to be watching the recording session today." And I'm going, "Genki, I wish you'd give me the heads up on this, man, because, you know, it's one thing to do the voice of an iconic actor and to sort of replicate it, but it's another thing to do an impression of someone's father who's passed away." And I'm going, "Oh man, I hope she likes it. I hope she doesn't get offended by it." You know, it's like I was really very, very tense. So I could not see her from my vantage point in the recording booth. Phil Lamar, who voices Samurai Jack, could. And he tells me that the minute I started to speak, she leans back in her chair and just does this. And then the session's over, and she comes right up to me with tears in her eyes and gives me a hug and says, "Thank you so much." It was like she was in the room with me again. And I could not help but think about what I would give to hear even an imperfect impression of my own father's voice again. And of all the things that I've ever done professionally or as a human, I think that was probably one of my greatest days, to be able to give that gift back to Mako's family when Mako was giving so much to me and my family, you know. So that was truly one of my proudest moments, you know. And it also was so nice and gracious of her, because in so doing, she sort of gave me the seal of approval of the family. Said, "You know what? It's okay that you're voicing, you know, my father. It's okay. We approve." So anyway, that was probably one of my proudest moments. I always tell that story, and I always get a little, because I always do think about my own father, as we all do. You relate things to your own life and how it relates. And it was pretty. It was very moving, very emotional. Anyone else? Moving on. Yes, sir.
Are there any shows or characters now with the people that made the show like yes, I'm going with that way?
Speak up, just a little bit.
Are there any characters or shows that if the producers hit you up like right now and say, "Can you voice this character?" You take some time?
Well, I mean, I would love to voice Iroh again. You know, that's I would love to voice Aku again. You know, Avatar Studios is starting up. They're going to produce animated content. I think their purpose is for CBS, Paramount Plus. They're trying to do like Disney has done with Marvel. You know, really exploring that universe with lots of shows. So I can't imagine them moving forward without Uncle Iroh, because he's such a beloved character. Now, whether or not it would be me voicing him, I don't know. They have not called me. I would love for them to call me. Mike, Brian, if you're listening, please call me. Please, I'm going to play Iroh again. I want to voice Iroh. But even if it's not me, I would like to see more from that universe and to see where they take it, because it really is a seminal piece of animation. And the reason for that, the reason we're still here 17 years later, is because Avatar never, ever dumbed it down. You know, from the very first episode, they're dealing with genocide. Now, what kids program has ever dealt with genocide before? And we go, for example, I think probably one of the scenes that people remember most fondly and get sad about is the Leaves and the Vines song, that entire sequence. And again, it's the brilliance of the show. That scene is not about death. Not really. Animation has been doing death since Bambi's mother got killed. That's not a big thing. That scene is about grief, which is a much more complicated emotion. And the fact that Avatar was not afraid to go there is, I think, why we're still talking about it today. Because it really did. It was not afraid to do things and to go places that no piece of animation had ever gone, in my mind, before that point. So, yeah, well done, Avatar. Thank you, Mike and Brian. And call me, please, call me. And now I'm sounding desperate. Never sound desperate. Anybody else? Next question. Yes.
Who are some of your favorite voice actors you've met over your work that you've had the most fun just meeting and just...
Well, I have been very, very lucky. I mean, Tom Kenny, I really fanboyed when I got to work with John DiMaggio. And of course, Greg Griffin. I love Greg Griffin. She's a remarkable talent. And oddly enough, back many years ago when I was in high school back in Spring, Texas, I used to go to speech and drama tournaments. And there was this other kid that used to compete against me, and I would always get second, and he would get first place, even at the state meet. And later, he followed me to University of Houston College, and he would get all the good roles, and I would get the character roles. And then later, I moved to LA. He and his wife moved to LA as well and stayed with us. And that was, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, Johnny Bravo, for example. It was Jeff Bennett, who has done probably, look at his resume. This guy has done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of voice acting roles. And also, the thing I really hated about Jeff, I still do, not only was he better than me, and he always beat me, He was a nice guy. I hate that. Couldn't you at least be a jerk? So I still talk to him from time to time. And I would have to say the voice actors, not only that I've worked with, but a voice actor that I've personally known, Jeff Bennett is truly one of the greatest. My personal favorite though of all time, any voice actor living or dead. Have you ever heard of an actor named Paul Frees? If you've ever been to the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland, he's the I am your host, your ghost host. And he did, if you've ever watched any of those Rankin and Bass Christmas specials, the stop motion, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Santa Claus is coming down, he is in all of those. And Paul Frees definitely would probably be, I mean, most people, I mean, obviously you cannot, the contribution of someone like Mel Blanc, would probably, most people would say that would be the greatest of all time. I always liked Paul Frees' voice and the fact that it did go, not altogether, I suppose, maybe that's right, not altogether unlike my own, it's very deep, and it goes down, and it gets a little raspy. I always liked Paul Frees, Frees. If you'd like to Google him, Paul Frees is the man. Paul, wherever you are, I'd like to meet you someday, but not today, if you don't mind. Same thing with you, Marco. I can't wait to meet you, but please not today. Maybe give me just a few years. 20 years would be good. I'll take it. Anybody else? Next question.
Do you have the pie show title of the White Lotus?
I do. All right. I have full disclosure. I originally had this idea. So, I told my wife, you know what? I think a pie show title tattoo would look great for it. And my daughter said, well, Dad, there's this place called Momentary Ink. You can get it to see if you like it before you get a real tattoo. I said, okay, I'll do that. And sure enough, I started doing cons, and my wife said, okay, you're right, Greg. She doesn't say that often, but she did. She said, you're right, Greg. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to get a real tattoo. And then the pandemic hit, so there were no tattoos. And I also had gone to the doctor. I had an issue with, I had ear piercings before. And the skin doctor said, you should never get problems with scarring. So don't get any more piercings, don't get any tattoos. So bottom line is this is a very expensive fake tattoo that I pay basically $50 a month to keep. It would probably make more sense to just go and actually get the tattoos, And indeed, I think maybe I will. I'm 61. What could possibly go wrong? I don't have that long left. It's like, we'll just let this practice anyway. I think it looks cool. And more importantly, what it does for me is it reminds me of who it is I'm supposed to represent in the world. So I will look at it sometimes, and when I'm feeling like being a jerk, or like it happens with all of us, it reminds me maybe to be a little more Ira-like in my interactions with people, And that's another reason why I look at it. I just like to look at it. It comforts me in an odd way. So I think I've just about made up my mind. I'm just going to bite the bullet and make it real. Should I do that? Does it hurt?
No.
Not
Right there.
I think it wouldn't hurt here, but I said if it was here, it would probably hurt. All right, it's done, it's settled. Next time I'm going to do it. It's not calling out. Who else? Now, more questions. Yes, who back there? Oh, who do I play? Star Wars. Oh, I was very fortunate to guest quite a bit on Clone Wars. And my very on Clone Wars, did you see the episode? It's my favorite non-Mako character. It was in the episode called Lightsaber Lost, where Ahsoka loses her lightsaber. And there's a very old Jedi named Tara Sinube, whose lightsaber is in his cave, who helps her find the lightsaber. And here, I'm going to tell you guys, this is a secret voiceover trick of the trade. Sometimes, and who taught me this? Jeff Bennett actually taught me this. With, for example, Johnny Bravo was really just doing an impression of Elvis Presley. And he said, start out with just an impression of someone you know, and the more you do it, it's going to become your own. So the character of Tara Sinube, who sounds like this, if you go back and you watch the first two Harry Potter films, where Richard Harris is playing Dumbledore,
you will discover that there is definitely a similarity between the voices.
It's kind, you know, it's kind of cheating, but it's kind of not, because it really does give you a template at the very beginning. And the more you do it, you know, the more you do it, it does become your own. So that is, without a doubt, that was my favorite. I also did on Clone Wars, I was the space pirate in Guam. How was that drawing? And then I was, who else? There was one voice I did. It was, what was his name? Cassis, I think. And he was a farmer, right? I said, okay, this character is a farmer. I said, okay, he's a farmer. Well, I think a farmer should sound like this. This is how I'm going to go in and do the role. This sounds like a salt of the earth farmer. I'm going to do this voice. And I go in again. He goes, yeah, that's great. Would you mind doing the voice sort of like Mako? It's like, okay, man, I can do that. So actually, the character ended up sounding very much like this. Which is also, if you've heard, a same sort of situation with a game called Ghost of Tsushima. Beautiful video game. In the expansion pack, there is the narrator of the whole piece is called Gyozen, the blind storyteller. And that is also very much requested to be. If Mako had been alive, that would have been his part. He's very much patterned on his inflections. And also just a beautiful, beautiful game. You know, it's eventually, I was looking at Ghost of Tsushima, what they're doing. They're becoming so close in these games to making it look like a movie and absolutely real. I think we are not far away from, they will just be CGI and all actors. But the one thing, they're getting very close to replicating the human form and the eyes and everything, but they can't even begin to replicate the human voice. So for a while, I've got a gig for probably a few more years before the robots take over. Anyone else? No math questions, geography questions, I'll take those. No political questions, please. Good heavens, no. Anyone? Well, then. We have one over there.
We have 5 minutes to give a breakdown of IRO to Baldwin.
I was asked this question before, and I think, he will rapidly discover this. IRO is more than a role. It's more than just a role that an actor plays. I learned it myself, because originally I thought, wow, this is a well-written role, this is a great part. Now on to the next thing. IRO is I cannot stress, and you will learn this once you start to meet the fans, I cannot stress the impact that this character has made on people's lives. I cannot think of another character, live action or animation, that time and again people come up and they say, well, I was going through this rough part of my life, and Iro said this, and it made me feel better. And I think that would be something I say to prepare yourself for, because that's going to happen. What you're representing is more than a role, really. It's more than just a role. It is, what's the word I would think of? A way of life, a philosophy, really, in a way. In a way, Iro represents a philosophy. And he also, to be honest, he is the father figure for, I was joking with my wife, but that's not too far from the truth. Iro is a father figure for our generation. People have come up to me again and again and said, I didn't get along with my father. I didn't have a father. Iro is my father. And that, I think, would be the thing that I would not presume to give an actor of his stature any acting notes, because I'm sure whatever he does is going to be fantastic. And I cannot wait to see him in costume as Iro. I'm sure that I would cry along with everybody else. Here he is at last. Here is Iro actually real. I mean, technically, there was another, Sean Tude played Iro in a live action film, but we do not speak of that particular live action film. There is no movie in Boston, so. I was able to get through about 10 minutes of it. Has anyone here watched the whole thing? You watched the whole thing?
Unfortunately.
You are brave. You are courageous people. I could not understand how putting that much money into something so beloved, how wrong they could get it. That's something I don't understand. It's like you simply were not paying attention to the fans here, because this is not, and Sean too, I thought did a very nice job, but Iro isn't thin, Iro is fat, Iro being fat is part of who he is. Because, and also, his ability to become unfat when the time comes, you know. Fun fact, you know, the buff Iro scenes, you know, when he's in prison. I don't like to brag about this, but the animators used me as a model for that. I wear this when I'm out making appearances. I wear this fat suit because I don't want to intimidate people, you know, thinking a 61-year-old man can be all ripped like that. So I do it because I'm a giver. I'm just a giver. What can I say? But yeah, I mean, I wrote him again. It's circling back to savoring the small, simple pleasures in life, which is why Iro carries a little weight on. This is a man that enjoys his tea, enjoys his food, he enjoys his hot dogs. Probably a bit of a ladies' man at this time, I would imagine. But here's the question that will blow your mind. Iro is a very loving individual. He clearly loves his nephew. He clearly loves Lieutenant. But not once in the entire series is Mrs. Iro even mentioned. And I think it's really weird, knowing what we know about Iro, that he would not even mention it at some point. You know, and if I should be lucky enough to get into a room with Mike and Brian, if I could just, 5 minutes where I could ask them a question, I would like to know, was that simply omission, or did you intentionally not put that information in? Because I can't imagine somebody with this heart not even mentioning the mother of the son, you know. I mean, maybe my own theory, again, it's just a theory, he died in childbirth and it's simply too painful for him to even bring it up and think about. But I don't know that for a fact. It could have been an arranged marriage, it could have been a lot of things. But I would definitely like to know why it's not even talked about, you know. And maybe someday I'll have the chance to get into the room with them because they'll cast me in another show and I can talk to them again. Any more questions? Yes, sir.
With the guy that's now playing real life Iro, have you done any coaching with him on the voice?
My only interaction with Paul has been via Twitter, and I congratulated him getting the role, and I said we should get together for Jasmine Key sometime. And I would love to get together with Jasmine Key. That would be an interesting thing, because I'm actually. I guess I am the second of four Iros. Because there would have been Mako, and then there's me, and then there's Sean too, but now there's Paul Sun Lee. Pretty good company to be in, you know, if you ask me. Any other questions? We got an hour. I'll talk about it. We got 15 minutes left. I'll talk about whatever you want, anything you want. Yes.
So during the pandemic, a lot of voice actors and animation studios and stuff were heavily affected by it, and I'm just curious how it affected you.
Well, actually, we had just moved to Albuquerque, and we had renovated this moldy old one-car garage into like an office for me, and I put a small little space in there where I could record. But I thought I was only going to have to record auditions, which I would send to LA, and if I got the gig, I would go there to be in the studio. Basically, it ended up costing me some money, because I had to really upgrade that space. And fortunately, I had a good friend at Disney who was a sound engineer, and he was able to tell me, okay, this is the bare minimum of what you need for a professional sound booth at Disney. And indeed, I do record The Ghost of Molly McGee from that, sounds from my own booth. So it's been a blessing, because my commute is just a couple of steps outside of the garage. But I also miss the interaction with my fellow actors. And I am one of those actors, I have no desire to direct whatsoever, anything ever. I like to be directed. I like someone to tell me what they want so that I can do it. So I do miss having vocal direction, you know. And to get it to an extent when we do the sessions via Zoom, but it's just not the same thing. And I also say, because I'm recording it myself, I'm the one that has to sit, hit the recording button. They have engineers in LA that are monitoring it, but I'm always, petrified that I'm going to screw up the tech. And then, we're going to have this whole hour session, and I forgot to hit a button, or I did something wrong, and it's like, oh, well, we're going to have to schedule a whole new session. Thus far, it has not happened. But that to me, and there was shortly after the pandemic began, I did a Samurai Jack thing called Samurai Jack Battle Through Time. And they wanted to do a promo video game of me playing the video game as Aku, taunting Jack as I'm playing the game. But the pandemic was in full swing. This was probably like the early summer of 2020. So there was no way I was going to LA. It was better than a USC film class. They sent me all the equipment, the lights, all the sound equipment. They sent everything to my house. I had my computer over here when I'm hooked up to the production team in LA. And I'm literally doing everything. I'm decorating this. I'm, positioning the set. I'm checking the sound levels. I'm literally doing everything that a crew would do. Plus, I'm taking the direction. I'm literally down to the point of I'm doing the clapper in my armchair. And finally, okay, cool. And then I'm playing the game of big actor. And that was a wild thing, man. That was, again, that was worth, you could do 4 years in film school and probably not learn as much about filmmaking as I learned in that one day. And I have done some live action things, but I found, here's the thing, I'm lazy. And when you do film, generally you have to get there some ungodly hour in the morning, like 3 o'clock in the morning, get into hair and makeup, and then you sit around on set most of the time. Sometimes you're putting in 15-hour days. Well, SAG day player scale is the same for voice actors. So you make the same money for 15 hours on a set or an hour and a half in a recording studio. I know which one I want to be in, I know which one I can. That being said, I was very lucky. I haven't done a lot of film work, but I was really fortunate to work on a film called Hail Caesar by the Coen brothers. And that was watching the Coen brothers for a week, watching them direct. That was, again, that was worth 4 years at USC Film School. And the second day of shooting is one of the coolest days. We shot one day, and I'm really scared because I've never done this before. I've done voice acting, but this is, and some on camera, but not like, this is a Coen brothers movie. This is the big leagues. George Clooney's there. And I'm getting there, again, it's an ungodly hour in the morning, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm pulling into the parking garage, I'm walking down to there to make up. George Clooney is walking on the set in his Caesar costume. And he says, "Hey, good morning, Greg, I'll see you in there." And I'm going, "Holy moly, George Clooney knows my name, man. This is amazing." And here's the thing about George Clooney. George Clooney is 1 year younger than me. What's up with that? I just say it. There's me, there's George Clooney. It just doesn't seem fair, It doesn't seem, and he really does look like that. That was probably one of my biggest fanboy moments. It was towards the end of the shoot, and there was an actor. I love Christmas movies. There was a film called The First Santa Claus. A film called actor called David Krumholtz. Anyone seen the Santa Claus? He plays Bernard, the head elf. And I love this guy's performance. And I was so excited to meet him today. And I had lunch with you because I've been talking because I'm actually a big fan. And he said, "Sure." So I'm sitting there. I'm fanboying because I'm sitting there with David Krumholtz, Bernard the elf. Then Joel Coen walks in and sits down at our table with us. So now I'm going, "Holy moly, I'm sitting at a table with David Krumholtz and Joel Coen." And then the icing on the cake, who should walk in? I'm sitting there having lunch with George Clooney, Joel Coen, and David Krumholtz. And I'm going, and I'm not, fortunately, they started talking about The Godfather, which is something I could talk about. So at least I wasn't like, "Oh, I'm just so excited to be here, guys, you're fantastic." So that was probably, that's my one huge fanboy moment. And another happened at the last record session for Avatar. And I'm sitting there in the green room waiting to go in. And who should come in and sit right next to me but Mark Hamill? And I'm going inside. My inner monologue is, "Come on, Baldwin, you're a professional, man. You gotta be cool. No, be cool, man. Don't fanboy. You gotta be cool. You're professional. Okay. Just don't say anything. You're really cool. Don't say anything. Don't even notice he's there." And so that was like, okay, I'm going to play cool and act like I don't even notice that Luke Skywalker is sitting next to me. So we go in and we do the session, and this is why, and everyone that knows him will agree with me, what a lovely, wonderful human being he is. He comes up to me after the recording session, "Hi, that was really good work you did in there. Hi, we haven't met. My name is Mark Hamill." And I'm like, I know who you are, man. And then I started to get, he probably thinks I'm stuck up because I didn't talk to him. I was just scared, man. I was just, nervous, embarrassed, because, You're Luke Skywalker. So yeah, those are my two probably biggest fan moments. And it was pretty cool. It's pretty cool to say, oh yeah, my brother was voiced by my friend Mark Hamill. Yeah, that's how that goes. Yeah. You wouldn't be surprised though. People think that we all hang out together. And prior actually to the pandemic, I've gotten much closer to my classmates since the pandemic. We started to get to know each other via these Zoom panels. And then Michaela Murphy, aka Jessie Flower, who voices Pop, I've actually become very good friends with. We generally travel together. And she literally, when she comes through New Mexico on the way to Tom's in Texas, she will stay at our house with us. So, in fact, she spent New Year's Eve with my family. So we've become actually very good friends. So I think, have we gone an hour?
No, you're good, Greg.
We're good?
We're good. Yeah, I was actually coming by just checking on you. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I was supposed to be. Never mind. I'll talk to you about it.
No worries.
I feel so bad.
No, man. Anybody? Another question?
What's your favorite impression?
My favorite what? Impressions? Well, I would have to say my favorite impression is the one that I do with Monko and Matsu. I do do impressions, but I do this joke. I say, I do lots of impressions. Here's my impression of John Wayne.
Hello, my name is John Wayne.
Here's my impression of Donald Trump.
Hello, my name is Donald Trump.
Here's my impression of Jimmy Stewart.
Hello, my name is Jimmy Stewart.
I think my best impression, a lot of you guys are probably too young to remember a cartoon called Mr. Magoo.
Nope, I know Mr. Magoo. I'm 37.
You got it again. I'm very proud of that particular person.
Oh boy.
And the usual, I can do you can do that one. Yoda, yeah. My best, I used to do Ronald Reagan. I ask not what the country can do to you, ask what you can do for your country. Most of the try to stop me, ask me, give me an impression, anybody, see what I can do. Name somebody.
Marlon Brando.
Hello, my name is Marlon Brando.
I don't even have to do Brando's voice. All I have to do is put out the mustache.
Yeah, I can see it.
It's all about the mustache. The Godfather came out 50 years ago.
Yep, it did.
And you know what? I remember it because it was my first R-rated movie I ever got to see. My aunt took me to see it. And I don't know if it's what I was probably too young to see the film, because my reaction to the film after seeing it was probably too young. I want to grow up and be in the mafia. I don't think that's what the film, Francis Ford Coppola intended. And then I was crushed to find that I wasn't Italian. It's like they wouldn't let me in. I could have had another career. I think I did a very good thing. Anybody else? Yes, sir. A little louder. A Yoda impression? Yes, Yoda. I can do Yoda. There you go. Other people. There are some impressions everybody does. It's like I'll get an audition for Pirate, and it's like people that aren't voice actors do impressions of pirates. Everyone has a pirate voice, So usually it's like, I do a very good Santa Claus. It's very much the Miracle on 34th Street thing. He's rather English. Oh, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you all. It's so good to see you here today. I think, actually, it's not a little creepy, though. Actually. So, on the other hand, maybe we'll strike that from my repertoire. People ask me what's good, for voice actors, technical tips. And that is one of them. Learn to do as many impressions as you can, because you can adapt those to characters. And another really good tip is to learn as many dialects as you can. I was doing a show called The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack. And they sent me a rendering of the character, and it was an English cop. It looked like an English cop. And, oh, it's an English cop. Oh, well, this is the voice. It's going to be a cop. Yeah, so we're going to do it. And I walk in, and there's the director, and he says, now, you know this character is Irish. Well, of course, I knew that's all an army voice. No problem at all to turn him into an Irishman. So it's a really good idea to learn technical, just a technical tip, to learn as many impressions and dialects as you can, just to pull out of your pocket. On a more esoteric level, I say if you really want to, I'm not going to lie to you, it's not the easiest business to break into, but don't ever let anybody tell you that you can't. And if it's what you really want, persevere. Because the biggest, before I had any real success in life, I was 46 years old. I remember one of my first voiceover agents, I won't mention her name, but she took me on sort of under duress because I had a friend who was a producer and my friend Jack Bennett, who was her client, and was saying, you need to take this guy on. She didn't especially want to take me on because I wasn't her idea. And at the time, I think I was probably only 40 years old. And my first morning with her, she said, well, number one, you're really too old to get started in this business. I'm not sure what I can do. I'm not sure what I can do with you. And don't ever let anybody tell you no. Because she told me I was too old, but you know what? I wasn't too old. And by the way, wherever you go, I might say something a little saltier, to the children, So yeah, don't ever let anybody tell you you can't do something. Stick to it, keep doing it until you do it. I think a lot of this business, if you have to break it down, some of it is skill. You need to have the skills. You need to have the innate talent. You need to have a tough skin because I guarantee you are going to hear no way more than you will ever hear yes. And you're going to have to get used to hearing the word no. But I think the most important component is perseverance. It's what you really, really want. Figure out how to get it, and don't let anybody tell you you can't get it until you've got it. And if I could give anyone any voice acting advice, it's that don't let anybody tell you no, and don't let anybody tell you you're too old or too short or too whatever, because you're not. Anybody else? Any more questions?
I want to say that you can't leave you with any, like you just left that at a fantastic moment, right? Give him a hand clap, everybody.
I'm going to put my cosplay on right now.
Yep.
So give me about 20 minutes. I'll be in cosplay at my table and then come by and say hello and have a picture taken with me in full Iro regalia.
Absolutely. Give us a big round. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Shall we?